All right. Welcome, guys, to another episode of Behind the Visual with Mark Hansen, that podcast where I interview all those people responsible for all those images and videos you see out in your world every single day. I am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer Mark Hansen, and today my guest is Kim Gougenheim, the photo editor at the New York Times. She mainly does the NYT food and NYT cooking sections. And we talk obviously a lot about food, but we also talk about how she got to where she is now. So we talk about working at Rolling Stone and what that was like for her first job out of school. Then we talk about how she went from there and she ended up at Oprah magazine with her first shoot meeting Oprah, also being in the home of Maya Angelou, and how cool that was. Then she went from Oprah magazine to Rachel Ray magazine. We have a few stories about that as well, which are very interesting. Then she went from there to New York Times. We talk about how she got there, what it's like there compared to the other places, and how they were able to keep shooting during COVID, which obviously they had to make a lot of adjustments to make that happen. Then we also have a couple of cool stories about the time she was on the set of Sesame Street, and she got to sit on those steps. She got to meet Elmo. They did a photo shoot with Elmo, so we learned what Elmo can and cannot or do or is allowed to do with his little hands. And one of those involves a knife. So check that story out. And then a couple of stories about hand models. And all I'm going to say is they're very interesting stories, and maybe the word diva might apply to a few hand models. Not all of them, but definitely a few of them are some divas, especially from these stories. So check that out. Let me know what you guys think. Like it, subscribe to it, comment on it, thumbs up it, all that kind of stuff. Let me know what you think about these stories about Elmo and especially those hand models. And I look forward to hearing from you guys. Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, this is very cool. Where did you grow up in New York?
I grew up in Texas.
Texas.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
tell me about how did you get from Texas to New York?
So I grew up in Spring, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston.
Okay.
And I came here for school. I mean, I got interested in photography when I was probably around 15. And I think picked up my dad's old Canon AE1 and started shooting.
Oh, yeah.
And had a camera around my neck everywhere I went through high school. And I was a photo major at SVA, and that's what brought me here. I mean, I kind of fell into the photo editing side of it, had never considered that at all. And also growing up in Texas as an only child too, from parents who were born and raised in a small Texas town. My dad was like, "You're not leaving this state." And it's like, I'm going to New York. I also had two close friends that had moved here before I did. So that also kind of helped spark my interest in New York.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And and then finally, my parents were like, "You've never even been there. Let's go and look at the schools." And I fell in love with it, of course. And landed at SVA.
Oh, wow. How long did it take for you to convince your dad that it was okay to go to school?
You know what? I probably started talking about it maybe my sophomore year in high school. And then I think somewhere in the junior year, he was like, "Well, if you're really serious about this is a hard career. You want to be at a good school." And he's like, "Let's go check it out. Let's go see, like, you want to be in a good place for that."
Right.
And so, yeah, he finally gave it. I think once we came up here and toured the schools, and both my mother and I kind of fell in love with New York.
Yeah.
And I think then he was kind of, I don't think that's what he was hoping would happen.
Oh, I'm sure he wasn't.
So, and then I actually met my husband in college.
Oh, wow.
And so then he was like, I stayed.
We are both at SVA?
Yeah.
What's he do now?
Yeah, he's a photographer. He's on staff at Macy's.
Oh, wow.
And he does catalog work for Macy's and advertising stuff for them.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so he stayed on the photo end of it, and I completely fell into the editing side.
How hard is it to get into SVA? What's the process?
Sadly, it's so long ago, I don't really remember exactly.
Yeah.
I remember when we came up, I had an in-person meeting and presented a portfolio. I actually think maybe coming from someplace out of the city might have been helpful.
Right.
Just because, I think the work I was doing was different than,
Yeah.
people that were more local. But yeah, I really don't remember that much about it, which is kind of sad. I was starting to go through the college process with my daughter, and I'm like, I don't remember exactly what I did, but
yeah, I have no. I know I filled out a piece of paper. I went to a little small school, Appalachian State, up in Boone, North Carolina mountains, and I only went really because I just wanted to go skiing. So I don't remember hardly anything about filling out the application or any of that stuff. So.
Yeah, I don't remember very much of that at all, to be honest. I remember putting a lot of work into putting a portfolio together. And I remember meeting with someone in person and showing that and talking about the work. And that's really about all I remember.
Well,
it's kind of sad.
Maybe that's all it took. Maybe that was the major thing. Yeah. Like they looked at it, I was like,
yeah.
Come on.
Right.
That's good. So then if you went in for photography, how did you come out into like photo director, producer, editor, all that kind of stuff?
So, my senior year, I really hadn't figured out how I was going to make a living doing this, but I had a friend from SVA call me who was a year ahead of us, and called up, and she had done an internship at Rolling Stone the previous year and said it was a great experience, and they had asked her if she knew anyone else who would be interested. And I thought, well, that would be a great way to kind of see how the other side works.
Yeah.
And that would, help me figure out, from a business standpoint, how I'm going to make a living doing this and what kind of things they're looking for. So I did this internship at Rolling Stone and had a blast, honestly. It was, it was one of those things where you just like, at that time, just kept your mouth shut and listened to everything going on around you. And I just was taking it all in. I was basically doing, those were the days of photo returns, and, everybody was sending actual slides and images. Yeah. So, I would log things in, I would do photo returns, I would help with some photo research, I would run back and forth to the messenger center with portfolios and that kind of thing. But Lori Kretokville was the head of the photo department at that time, and she and I really seemed to click. And so, when the internship ended, she, kind of brought me back part-time to, help with things, work on organizing. They had this, I remember they had a closet it was literally like a closet with file cabinets that was from the early days of Rolling Stone before images would be returned. And it was just filled with prints and beautiful images. And
you still any of those Annie Leibovitz prints that were in there?
Right. So they basically brought me in to kind of organize that archive and help with, photo research and things like that. So I would go into this closet and turn on some music and just spend hours going through these amazing images. That was, just incredible to see. And I was starting to take my portfolio around and try to figure things out. And then
just trying to convince them to let you shoot for them.
That wasn't quite my thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I would have done well as a photographer, because I also, as far as shooting people, I would be a little too quiet and timid with that. I wouldn't have been good with that. Right. So, looking back on things, it's I think things went the right way.
Were you shooting product and food and that kind of thing?
I wasn't. Not at that time. My portfolio at that time I had two kind of different portfolios that were very mixed. One was kind of this almost black and white Americana kind of I would go in, I loved these sort of little disappearing towns in Texas, and I would go and photograph those and just the abandoned places, like the old abandoned church and things like this in these little bitty towns. But then the other kind of work that I was doing, totally different, was more like with color and manipulations of combining images through slides and things like that, which was appealing to record companies.
Right.
But also, again, like they were all people that, like, I knew really well that I photographed. Like, I don't feel like I would have done well with, some band that I didn't know. I think I would have been too intimidated. But it was two very different bodies of work, and I wasn't really sure, the projection stuff was what I was really showing, because that was what I was figuring I could kind of make more of a living with that. And, but I was doing that and working part-time at Rolling Stone. And then Lori left and went over to InStyle. So they kept me at Rolling Stone a couple of days, and then Lori brought me over to InStyle for a couple of days. And so it kind of picked up a little more. And
are they owned by the same company?
No, they aren't.
Oh, okay.
They're different companies. They were like across the street from each other, just about. But then Men's Journal, which is the same company as Rolling Stone, was a new magazine, and it was picking up, and they were growing and wanting to create an assistant photo editor position. And so, they pulled me aside and said, at Rolling Stone, and said, "We know you love being here. We don't have anything full time, but if you want to do this, this is a great opportunity." And, so yeah, I was having a blast doing what I was doing there. And so I figured, like, oh, I'll go for it and see what happens. And I got the job. And I kind of felt like, as long as I was loving what I was doing, like, I would keep going in that direction. So totally fell into it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool though.
Yeah. And then, it kind of went from there. Like, the food thing also kind of fell into, because I was at Men's Journal, and then from there actually went to Food and Wine. And I went to Food and Wine with no food experience whatsoever. I remember, like, saying in the interview at one point, I think I said, I was like, I can pick up on things really quick. And, I have no concern I can do the job. I said, but I've never worked with food and prop stylists. And, at that time there was, a lot less than there are now. And I remember the editors was, like, "Oh, you'll pick it up really fast. There's only a few good ones at this point anyway."
All right.
So it's like, all right. So I kind of fell into the food thing. I, learned a lot about it at Food and Wine. And then, when I went to Oprah magazine, they were also fairly new, and they were trying to figure out their food pages. So I did a lot of I worked on a lot of different kind of stories at Oprah, but the food, because of my experience at Food and Wine, was always on my plate. There were, it took a while to kind of figure out what worked for them on that.
How'd you get over to O magazine?
So that also, it was Karen Frank was over there at the time as the photo director, and she and I had met. We had met previously, we had never worked together, but had met previously. And I was actually very briefly between Food and Wine and Oprah. I was at Family Life magazine, which is long gone.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
I think I remember that magazine, maybe. I'm not positive though.
It folded a long time ago. But I wasn't there. I mean, I have a varied background, but I had, a lot of fun experiences in each one, and learned a lot of different things. But Family Life was kind of a brief stint. I don't even think I was there for a full year, because I heard about this position at Oprah. And that sounded like an amazing opportunity. And, it was a young magazine. It wasn't from the get-go. It had started up, but it was still very, very new.
Right.
And so I ended up going over there as photo editor, and stayed there for about 7 or 8 years. Like, I was there for a while, I think about 7. And yeah.
Did you hang out with Oprah a lot?
Not a lot, but I did get to, did see her on shoots, and cool. Had some amazing experiences there.
Did she just
Love,
bring in all her friends for shoots, or were these
no.
or they say, "Hey, come on, let's hang out for the day.
Right.
We'll shoot something." That had to have been
Um,
cool to hang out and be on set with Oprah, I guess.
yeah, yeah, it was definitely a very cool experience being there. And I got to, I got to work on so many different types of photography there. I mean, even though food was always mine, but I still got to, do a little bit of, more portrait and conceptual, and a little bit of beauty. Didn't get too much into fashion, which was totally not my thing, which is went on a few of those shoots, but not too much.
Who was the coolest person you were around for a shoot with that you liked
Oh
or
my
were
gosh,
kind of excited about?
the coolest person. Well, two I think the most amazing experiences I had at Oprah. The first time I met Oprah was, I had been there just a couple weeks, I think, and I was on set and I got a call and was like, "Hey, can you travel for, we have a shoot with Oprah and we need you to go." I was like, "Yeah, sure." So
Like, let me
she
think about it.
right, it's like, I'm in. She did these O Talk 2 interviews, and she would, interview a different celebrity each month for the magazine, and we would do the photo shoot at the same time, and they always had a photo editor on set. And so I ended up going on a lot of those when I was there, which was a lot of fun. But the first one that I did, and the first time I met her, was at Maya Angelou's house.
Whoa.
So that was a little overwhelming
I was
and
gonna
amazing.
say.
So, like, I had this moment of like, I'm standing in Maya Angelou's house in front of her and Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, wow.
And I had never met her before. So I was kind of like, "Hi, I work for you." Nice to meet you.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
But we had, yeah, Rob Howard was the photographer on that one. And we set them up. Oprah specifically wanted to be sitting at her feet, which she usually didn't have specific requests on things like this, but she specifically wanted, Maya was going to be sitting in this chair and Oprah wanted to be sitting kind of at her feet and looking up at her. And so we set up the scene, and it was by the fireplace. They wanted to light the fire. And we were all kind of like, I was like, I don't want to light her fire.
Yeah, no
Like, I
kidding.
don't want to be responsible
Yeah.
if something goes wrong. We got the fire going, we set them up, and I have kind of a scrapbook from my Oprah days, because that was the days of Polaroids too. So that was kind of, I have a photo of me and Rob's assistant in the positions of Maya and Oprah for a stand-in shot. That's just kind of fun to look back on. But that was pretty amazing, to meet her for the first time, and Maya. That was incredible. And then one of my last shoots, when I was at Rachel Ray, actually jumping ahead, that was, stands out, at the White House with Michelle Obama, was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
She was absolutely incredible to everyone on the team. And I was
her. She's really nice.
She's really nice. I was at the White House at Oprah as well, under the Bush administration, and we photographed Laura Bush. And it was a much different situation.
Yeah.
Michelle was very much like everyone on set, made sure, she said hello to everyone, like shook everybody's hand. We took a group picture after.
Oh, wow.
Was just as nice as she could be. Wanted to make sure we had everything we needed. We're set. Under the Bush administration was all very formal and a little bit different, but
a little more uptight.
Yeah, a little more uptight. A little more uptight. But yeah, those were really amazing experiences. And yeah, Oprah there, I mean, there were so many, and so many like real people too. Like, we did a lot of real people stories, which are hard to photograph.
Yes.
But some of them were just, so inspiring in the work that they were doing. And so it was fun to work on, such a range of stories there. I really liked.
Did you travel a lot with that?
I did travel a lot. Like in the earlier days there, I traveled a lot. That was, budgets were much different at that point than
yeah.
they are now. And I mean, even pre-COVID, but,
Yeah.
budgets were not an issue when I started at Oprah, which was really nice. So I got to travel a lot, even when we did those interview shoots. We would go in the night before the interview just to make sure nothing was delayed or happened. So, I
Right.
mean, that shoot, we were in and out in like less than an hour, but we would fly in the night before and we would wait and be ready and, do the shoot and get out of there so that she could do her interview. But it was cool. It was nice to travel a lot and have that experience. And
You didn't go any place good?
I mean, mostly, actually all in the States, like nothing, never any
Right.
place like that exciting, but, it was a lot of like back and forth to like California, Florida.
Did you get to do anything in these places, or was it literally like most
It
my
was,
shoots? You fly in, you
it
see
was
the hotel, you see the location, you see the hotel and the plane, you're out.
it was mostly that kind of
Yeah.
thing, mostly that kind of thing, but it was still fun. It was still fun. That was
Yeah.
before kids and everything too. So it was like,
Yeah.
not
Yep.
as stressful. Hop up and leave.
I get it. Oh yeah, completely. So is Oprah as nice as she seems she is?
She was,
Or is it
I
an
was
Ellen
so impressed with
situation?
her. She was amazing. She was amazing. She's a very busy woman and very focused on what needs to be done. But when she, came in, she was focused on what she needed to do. And, she was always very respectful to everyone around. And, I remember actually after like some of my first couple experiences with her, I called my mom and was telling her like, just about how inspiring she was and all these things. And my mother had watched Oprah from the very beginning. And of course
Oh
she's like, well,
wow.
I told you. I told you. And I was like, I wasn't arguing the point with her, but I kept saying, you just never know with a
Oh
celebrity
yeah.
how, it might not be the same. But yeah, she was like, I knew, I told you.
So when you went from Oprah to Rachel Ray, was there a big difference in how those magazines are run, or was it very similar?
It was, well, it was, there were similarities and differences. It was a much smaller staff at Rachel Ray,
Yeah.
and it was almost all food at that point. Like we did a little bit of lifestyle, but over the years I was there became heavier in lifestyle. And I knew when I left Oprah that I wanted to keep food in the mix.
Right.
I really enjoyed the food shoots and the kind of people that work on food shoots. I really,
Yeah.
I was on set a lot, and I realized I really enjoyed being on set with a lot of those people more than I did, maybe a beauty shoot where you've got, hand models and style, a lot of different stylists, and although they're lovely people too, but it's
Yeah.
a kind of vibe on set, very
Yep.
different vibe on set. And so I wanted to keep food in the mix. Went to Rachel Ray, and initially was kind of like, wow, this is a lot of food. Like maybe I didn't want this much, but it was a great team, and also kind of growing and changing a lot, and we were redesigning, and so it did start to become, I think one of the biggest differences was more people on set, like that I was not used to. Like at Oprah, most of the time it was me alone or maybe one other editor. And at Rachel Ray, they would have an art director, a food editor. It was like, sometimes you have 4 or 5 people from the magazine on set. And it was kind of like,
Wow.
whoa, it's a lot of extra opinions on set.
Yes.
So that was probably the biggest adjustment, I think, was getting used to kind of dealing with all the different personalities on set and different opinions. And
Who was making the final call on that? So if you
well,
had
that was part of the adjustment in the beginning, is because everybody seemed to think they could have the final call.
Oh, yeah.
And so it took a little while to just kind of like be like, okay, look, we're all looking out for different things, and like let's kind of keep that in mind and not, get into anything in front of a team, and like, if there's anything we need to discuss to the side, let's discuss it to the side. But that took a
Never
little
tap the photographer and go, hey, I need some help over here.
right.
Tell them shut up.
And I would always be like, so like, I'm kind of like trying to field the photographer from, everyone. I had to, my style on set is very much, I'm very laid back, and I'm very much like, I've hired people that I know their work and I trust them, and
Right.
I've hired them for a reason. And so when I'm on set, I've given kind of the background of what we need, and I'm there to just kind of make sure things don't steer in a different direction, or, if questions come up about a recipe or a certain look, like, hey, I know we talked about this being light, but it all looks so much better on black. Can we do that?
Right.
Like, yeah, okay. Like, like to help with that kind of stuff on set. But I'm not the kind, there's a lot of art directors and people out there that will, the second food is on the set, they jump up and they're like, at the computer and commenting before the food stylist has even had time to look, or the photographer is still tweaking. And like, I'm very much the kind of person who likes to sit back, give them their time to work out what they want. And then when they're ready, I'll come over and look and comment. But like, I want them to be able to do their thing. And in the earlier days, there were a lot of people that didn't have experience on set, and it took a little while to, kind of work through that.
Right.
But there was, overall, it was such a nice group of people. And I was there 10 years, so it changed multiple times while I was there. I went through like 3 different editors, 3 different managing editors. A lot, multiple art directors. So it evolved a lot over time. And I worked with some great people there and really enjoyed being on set with a lot of them. And but overall, by the time I had left, like, I felt like magazines had changed so much. The time I got into it to where we are now.
Change other than circulation numbers.
Right. Yeah. So, it's sad, but it's, it also just, things have become, or at least in my experience, have become so micromanaged.
Mm-hmm.
And, you kind of lost a lot of the sort of spontaneity that can happen on set, because everybody was so concerned with like, well, let me look at like the sketch and do it just like this.
Oh yeah.
I don't like to work like that. So
yeah, it's a little like, we did a shoot the other day, and a lot of the art directors were remote, and we were sharing our screen. Well, I'm taking some test shots to check my lighting, composition, all that stuff. And I'm getting comments immediately. That's too dark. That's too bright. So finally I looked at my digital text, like, turn it off. Turn off my sharing the screen. And when we get it dialed in, then we'll come back on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everybody's got a
that always drives me crazy. And like, now, like, even through COVID, I would have people be like, do you want me to send images? And I'm like, no. Like, it's like, only if there's something you're concerned about and want me to see. Otherwise, no. Like, I know how much that slows things down. And I have been on set where we've had to do that and like be sending things to an art director. And then you're like calling and waiting, and, everybody's kind of standing around. And then, their comment is like, something that everyone on set has collectively gone through in this natural process that happens on set to get to that point. You're like, but we did this and this and this. And they're like, well, can we do it again? I want to see this. And I want to,
The worst, that doesn't bother me as much, sending in images.
Yeah.
What is irritating is when it hadn't happened in a long time, but we used to send them like in an email. Like, we'd send some shots through an email. Now we just kind of upload them to a file and go, hey, check it now.
Right.
But one time we were doing a shoot, and we sent some test shots for the art director to check out, and say at 3:00, 5:30, we get an email back going, I don't like the little girl's hair. Can we change it? I'm like, well, if you had emailed us about an hour ago, we probably could have, but she's been gone for half an hour now. Sorry, we can't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so those little things are a little irritating, but
Yeah.
overall, I don't mind sending the images,
Yeah.
like, a few of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if I send one, they go, do you have another? Like the other day we were shooting, and we sent, I think, one from each scenario. We had just shot 4 different scenarios.
Yeah.
And we shot one from each. Like, can we see a few more? I'm like, all
Right.
right, we can send you a few more. We'll send like 3 from each or something like that.
Yeah.
And it ended up being okay. And that's fine. And then occasionally we got a little like, well, let's see a little more of the product in the shot, or more towards it, that kind of thing, which was nice because I hadn't had a whole lot of direction before it started. It was one of those, here's what we're thinking, go shoot it.
Right.
And literally the go bys that they sent, this was a lifestyle shoot with product in it. And the go bys they sent were just product shots.
Okay.
No, it's just, I thank you, I guess, for those. I don't know, but we ended up shooting it. They were very happy, and it went very well. But yeah, I didn't have a lot to go by on
Right.
that shoot. Did you see a lot of Rachel? Who did you see more of on a monthly basis, Oprah or Rachel?
I probably ended up seeing more of Rachel
Yeah.
because at Rachel, I was going on all the cover shoots.
Okay.
And at Oprah, I was not doing cover shoots, but I was doing the interviews. And that, as budgets changed over the 7 years I was there, we stopped sending so many people out. So I stopped going on, like we stopped sending anyone to those shoots because really in the end that the setup in that kind of situation, there was so little you could do anyway. Like you were going into, whatever space or location that had been set up for this interview. And we would have about a half an hour window with Oprah and whoever to photograph and then get out. She didn't want that to take too long because she didn't want to end up going through her interview questions in talking to them before.
Right. Yeah.
But it worked out better to do the photography first. So, it was like, wanted it to be quick and get out. So we would always
have in there and pre-light and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
we
when
did
they came in, it was literally bang it out and be done.
Exactly. We would usually have an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the location, to go in and get set up and be ready. And then the idea was they would just come in and, take sometimes it was like 15 minutes and we were out of there.
Yeah.
So ultimately, as we started re-examining budgets, as time moved on and budgets got smaller, it was kind of like, well, there's really not much that I can do on set anyway. It's the photographer's going to pick whatever works best. And it's not like I can talk them into another situation. It's got to be quick and just got to get in and out. So in the earlier days, I traveled for all of those shoots and that was great. But yeah, and that was when I would see Oprah. So I think in the end, with 10 years at Rachel and going on all those cover shoots, I probably ended up seeing Rachel more so than Oprah.
Yeah. I miss the days of big budgets.
Yeah. Oh man.
Go cool places. Yeah. Now it's like, what can we shoot in your backyard?
Right. I know.
Well, we'll see what we can do. What happened to the keys?
Right.
No, we're just gonna fake it. We're gonna put a backdrop.
Right.
The keys. So when you left, you were at Rachel. Actually, when I was doing a lot of stuff for Meredith as well. I was shooting a lot for Sir Padres and I think it was American Baby. Yeah. So I was doing American Baby, and then it was all the same. It ended up being basically all the same creative director and photo editor. So she was working like 4 different magazines.
They kept I remember that actually. Yeah.
She was at American Baby and was doing a lot for them. And then she moved over to, I guess, the Hispanic side, which was interesting because she didn't speak any Spanish at all. But she did a great job. But I think she had 2 or 3 maybe different magazines that she was controlling, in charge of at the time. But it was cool. It was fun. I got to go to a couple of cool places.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I think a lot of it was we went to 2 different resorts on 2 different shoots. And I think the resorts were paying for everybody to come down. So they'd get free publicity or whatever.
Right.
So that was nice, at least.
Yeah, those kind of gigs are always nice.
Because we were in Cabo for
Uh-huh.
one, and then Key West for another.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I wasn't complaining about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, although Key West was very hot.
Oh, yeah, it can
Very
be.
hot. Yeah, my
Yeah.
assistant took a shower like in the morning,
Yeah.
at lunch, at the end of the day. I was like, it was just horrible. I was like, I'm not taking one at lunch because I'm going to get nasty again anyway. So I'm just going to deal with it.
Right.
But this one assistant, she just couldn't handle it. She's like, I got to go take a shower. I'm out. So what took you over to New York, to New York Times?
So so when I left Rachel Ray, I got caught up in like a round of layoffs there after 10 years. But honestly, it was like, I had been there too long. we were about to embark on yet another redesign. And like I said, with 10 years and multiple editors, we were in the process of getting another new editor, another new creative director.
Wow.
And, I it was a good thing. And I also decided at that point, I was like, I don't want to do another magazine. So when I was laid off, I was like, I'm going to take, it was like end of August. And I was like, I'm going to take the fall and just kind of like not do anything. I mean, I was looking for middle schools and high schools for the kids. So I was like, I'll
Okay.
focus
Yeah.
on that, but I'm not, and kind of think about what I want to do next. But I don't want to do another magazine. Like they've changed so much. And in my
Mhm.
experience, everything had become so micromanaged. And there was this kind of lack of respect for the photography and what was happening on set. And I was just tired and burnt out and didn't want to do it again. So I did end up freelancing a little bit for magazines in that time, but I was like, I'm not going to commit to anything full time.
Right.
And I was even thinking, I was like, do I go back to school? Do I like, what do I do? But I was targeting I was thinking of things with food and photography. I was like, what else can I do? And again, it was kind of an art director that I had worked with called me up and said, hey, I just heard that they're looking for a photo editor at the Times that specializes in food. And I threw your name out there if you're interested. And, I was like, that I would be excited about,
Yeah.
and I went over and met with them, and it just all clicked. And, I started with them freelance, and I freelanced for a while, and then they put me on staff. And it'll be, I think it's 3 years in July.
Oh, wow.
And I feel so lucky to have landed there. Like, it is such a great team, and everybody is so incredible at what they do and so respectful of everyone's roles and opinions and ideas. And, it kind of made me wish I had jumped ship from
Right.
magazines long before, but I probably wouldn't have landed here.
You never know, but yeah,
You
I
never know.
mean, that's
But I feel
great.
very, very lucky to have landed here. And, it's been really, really fun. And like 3 years into it, I'm still really happy and having a blast.
Oh, that's great. Yes, it
Yeah.
sounds like you must be very likable, because what I'm getting is a lot of people like you and like to recommend you to places. And I like you so far, and then we've only known each other for what,
Thank you.
30 minutes. So yeah, because I always tell everybody, everybody say, "Oh, it's all who you know." I was like, "No, it's not. It's all who knows you and likes you." Is what it comes down to. Because you can know a lot of people, but if they don't like you, it's not going to do you any good.
That's true, I guess. That's
Yeah.
true.
It's like, all right.
Yeah.
Is there a big difference? Oh, first of all, I get the emails from the New York Times food
Yeah.
recipe thing or something, like,
Uh-huh.
however many times you send them out a week or a month. I'm constant. So is that your photography in there?
Yes.
Well, all right. I'm gonna pay a little more attention to it now.
Yeah. So when I was first hired, I was doing everything for NYT Cooking and everything for the food report, which come, the Wednesday section of the paper, and which is a lot to juggle for one person
Yeah,
to do all of that. And NYT Cooking keeps growing and growing, and the amount of recipes we're putting out keeps growing.
that's what I'm getting every week or however
Yeah.
often.
So
Yeah,
so we did end up the last summer bringing on a second photo editor, which has been great. And so we kind of divided up. So he works on a lot more of the reported stories, and I work on the recipes. and reported stories that have recipes attached to them.
Okay.
So, but it's been really, really fun. And, it through COVID, I mean, more and more people are cooking.
Yeah.
So, that's even been really fun to just see how people are responding and loving the recipes and what we're putting out and seem really happy with things. It's been great.
I bet. So when you find photographers, oh, right, first of all, we'll come back to that in a minute. But what's the difference? It looks very much like a magazine. What's the difference between what you're doing now and what you were doing at the magazines?
Yeah. So a couple of differences. Budgets are a little smaller than
Okay.
at magazines. So, but we've been able to, I think, make it work really well. So we keep propping very, very simple and minimal. And so we generally only bring in prop stylists on big projects.
Okay.
And when it's not a big project, we work at a studio where we can pull props from the studio. There's stuff there we know we can use, and with a photographer and food stylist that are comfortable enough to do that.
Right.
So that's one of the differences, but I think it's actually in most cases worked very well. And then if we have a bigger project, or, we have 10 shots that are running together, then I'll bring in a prop stylist that can really think of it on a whole and more cohesively, so that the photographer and food stylist don't have to do that. The other thing is, at food magazines or magazines in general, it had reached the point where every single shoot, you felt like you were pitching for advertising. Like, I remember we would print out storyboards and here's a color palette and here's this direction. And we would go into the conference room, we'd pin up like 3 or 4 different story ideas for one story. Like, we could go this direction, we could go this direction. It could be more conceptual, it could be more, whatever.
Right.
And the editor and the managing editor and the executive editor would come in, and we'd kind of do this whole show, and everybody would weigh in. And it had become so micromanaged that it had reached the point where multiple times, they would be like, well, this is really fun for something else, but let's think of a different direction for this story. And I remember at one point, I think, having about 6 meetings about, something as simple as like hot dogs, and I was like, I'm going to lose my mind.
You're a good person, because about the 6th time I'd have come in with something so outrageous that they'd have been like, you're fired.
So it was just, and even like the color palettes, like, I felt like the creative director should be the one signing off and like, this is the color palette, this is this. And it had just become that so micromanaged from the top down. And it's, everybody's in those roles for position. The editor in chief doesn't necessarily know what the best color palette is going to be, or, it's like, you need to trust your people. And that had kind of gone away. And at the times, I mean, I kind of felt like I had post-traumatic stress syndrome for like the first 6 months, because I just would get information and I would just go do it.
Right.
And, I kept kind of being like, does anybody want to talk about it? Like, this is what I'm doing. Is this okay? But, everybody is expected, everybody's role, they respect it and they understand. And, bigger stories we'll talk about and kind of brainstorm on some ideas, but it's not anything to that level of, I mean, generally for the bigger stories, I will put together a few different visual ideas to show people and be like, oh, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And we'll kind of start there. And most of the time it's like 1 or 2 meetings and we roll with it. And, it's so refreshing and
Sounds like it.
so nice. So, we do like for the food shoots, for example, we probably shoot just of like straight studio food 2 to 3 days a week, doing approximately 7 recipes a day, give or take a little bit, depending on how complicated they are, how many shots we need. And, we kind of have our system of keeping track of them. I schedule everything. We have a system where the editors will put in any specific notes about the recipes, like if it's something that they definitely want to see sliced into, or they want to see it in the pan it bakes in, or something specific like that, they'll drop in their notes. But that's really it. And then I kind of take all of that, communicate with the team, pass on that information. For people that are working with us for the first time, I have kind of a visual reference to kind of give, and some guidelines I send out to just kind of give them like a little bit of the vibe we're going for. And, we want these things, these images are living on NYT Cooking, and hopefully for a very long time, where, we ideally want them to feel very timeless and, nothing that feels very dated. And, we do have older images on there. Just because, we're putting up things that we have, but as far as everything we shoot new and going forward, we're trying to just make sure that, ideally we're not looking back in 5 or 10 years and being like, wow, that feels really dated.
Right.
We want it to just feel very classic and very timeless, and, have the food, nothing that feels too fussy or over styled. Like, you want it to be accessible and relatable and to people. For me, the ultimate thing is, if you look at the photo and are like, oh my God, I have to make that, or like, I have to eat that now, then the photo has done its job.
I think
I'm definitely somebody who
the ones I remember. Yeah, you're doing a good job of that, because the ones I remember, I'm like, that looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then I look at the recipe and like, yeah, I'm not spending that much time making it. I don't like to cook, so that's the problem. I'm looking for the ones like, here's a 10-minute prep time.
Right. Yeah,
like,
there's a difference. That's definitely a difference if you don't like to cook.
Yeah, I'm not real big on that. Do you guys have a staff photographer, or do you hire a different photographer each time almost?
For the food shoots, we hire different photographers. There are some staff photographers at the times, but most of them are more journalistic.
Right.
And, so for more reported stories, we'll turn to them if they're available. And, we do have a studio photographer as well, but not as specialized in food. So for the recipes, right now it's all freelancers.
How do you find your photographers for that? First of all, food shooters, God bless them all, because I've done it 2 or 3 times. I don't care to ever do it again.
It definitely takes a certain kind of person, and definitely a certain type of patience, I think, as well. There's a lot there with like waiting for the food. And then of course, certain foods will turn really fast. Like if it's something that's cheesy or gooey, you want to shoot it really quick before it starts to congeal.
I think that's why I have my PTSD, because my first one, I think, was a cheese. It was packaging for some kind of cheese sticks, and they wanted to pull the cheese apart, cheese melting out. Started at 9, didn't get the shot approved until 6 o'clock that night.
Cheese pulls are very, very hard.
Yeah, I don't ever want to do it again. Almost maybe not even want to see cheese sticks again.
Anything with cheese, everybody always wants that gooey cheese shot. Yeah, those are very difficult. Mostly, I look for new photographers frequently, but a lot of the people we're working with are people that I knew and had relationships with, from years at Rachel Ray. When I was at Rachel, I was on set for most of the shoots. So I got to know a lot of the food photographers and food stylists and prop stylists really well, and also kind of understand how they work on set. And with the volume we do at the times, we don't really have the capacity for me to be on set all the time.
Right.
I go on for set for special projects, but for the regular weekly shoots, we're relying on the teams to do it on their own. So a lot of the people that I'm hiring are people that, I know how they work, and I trust that they're going to do it on their own, and they're going to get it and be fine. And, when I bring in new people, I'll try ideally to either match them with, if it's a new photographer, maybe put them with a food stylist that's worked with us, or vice versa. Just so they there's somebody there that kind of understands like what works and what doesn't. And
That's always nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's helpful, you know, because there's little things that come up, you know, that are just, you know, I send out guidelines, but there's just little things I think that come up naturally
It's
on
always
set that if
good.
somebody's
I had a
there.
client one time who sent me on a shoot and didn't tell me anything. They just, here's
Yeah,
your location, go, here's, and I showed up and I knew the stylist, thank God. And the stylist had worked for the company a lot.
yeah,
And so I just asked her, I was like, what am I shooting? Because they literally told me nothing. This was not like years and years and years ago.
yeah,
So I was a lot younger. Now I'd been like, all right, you got to tell me what
right.
you need, all that. But I was just happy to have the job. So I just went
Yeah,
there and I showed up like, what am I shooting? She goes, well, they usually kind of like it like this and they like it like that. And they want you to kind of this kind of a thing. And I was like, okay, good. And then I just went out and shot and they liked it. It ended up being like full on posters and stuff. But it was stressful because you had no clue. So it's wonderful to have somebody like you're talking about
yeah.
on set who's worked with them before and knows what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. And I think also, I mean, my hope once we kind of fully get back to whatever our new normal
Yeah.
is that, you know, now that there's two of us, there's another photo editor, like I'm hoping to be able to go on set a little bit more so that like if we do have a new team, you know, I could at least go on set with them the first day and kind of make sure like they kind of understand everything and get it and, you know, then send them off on their own. But
How are you doing shoots now? Are you going in person or are they on Zoom kind of a thing?
no, they're just doing it on their own, but
Yeah.
they're, I mean, they, you know, it was a transition. It's gone back to, you know, everybody kind of coming together to shoot cautiously and carefully still. But,
Yep.
you know, in the early days, it was very tricky because for two reasons, you know, obviously nobody, you know, we didn't want to ask anyone to be together, even
Mhm.
if they were willing and wanted to work. We just didn't feel that it was the responsible decision to be
Right.
doing these kind of shoots in with the state of the world. And so, you know, we canceled everything, but then we also still had to figure out how to still get content out there and put things out there. And also with everyone being at home, you know, it changed the way people were cooking and looking at food.
Mhm.
And everything we had on our lineups kind of went out the door, and it was, you know, became more about pantry staples, you know, like cooking with beans and rice and,
Right.
you know, the simple things that you can stock up on. You know, people were concerned about getting groceries.
Yep.
And so, you know, Melissa Clark brilliantly was doing a lot of pantry staple recipes for us. And you know, I was able to kind of switch gears to, you know, we have a few people that I know that are photographers that also have styling backgrounds, or stylists
Oh
that
yeah.
have photography back, you know, that kind of thing. So I worked out some deals with some of them to, you know, shoot for us, doing everything solo. Like basically,
Right.
you know, they would cook it, style it, shoot it all at their apartment, just them. And, you know, we couldn't do the same volume in a day, but we were
Mhm.
still able to, you know, produce new content and give people things to cook at home where they were stuck, and give them
Yeah.
some new things. And you know, it worked out far smoother than I expected it to. We did a
Well,
big
that's good.
scramble and it kind of came together. And also, you know, like there's a great husband and wife photographer and stylist team in California. You know, just finding different ways of making it work without putting people in danger,
Right.
basically. And so that kept us going for a while. But now we pretty much have people back in the studio and working. But we're, you know, our team is not back in the office yet, and my kids are still remote. So
Yeah.
I'm not going on set yet, you know.
When do you
But
think that'll happen?
right now we're looking at probably fall.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, there's a lot that I think the company is still considering on what that return to office will be like, and making sure that it's done in a safe way that everybody feels comfortable.
Do you think
And
everybody will be going back or do you think it'll be like a hybrid kind of thing?
I think it'll probably be a hybrid thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think we, you know, I think it will be for a lot of people. I think, you know, I think this has probably changed how a lot of people view
Mhm.
what work will be like. I think before, you know, so many people felt like, oh, you know, you can't work remotely like that, you know, with a lot of companies.
Oh
And,
yeah.
you know, I mean, the fact that we switched gears so quickly and we're still putting out, you know, the amount of stories, like, and I would actually get the paper and be like, oh my God, like this is like nobody is working in the office and this came together. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's very
So,
impressive.
I think I think it'll change the way a lot of companies view how people work.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. All right,
Yeah.
so do you like to cook?
I love to cook.
Do you?
I
What's your
do.
favorite thing to cook?
Um, Favorite, that's a good question. I do love to bake. I don't know that I have like a favorite thing to cook. I had never baked bread before COVID. And yes, we have
Is it
a
banana bread?
right, banana bread I had done, but never.
Okay.
We have a no knead bread recipe at the Times that I started making during COVID, and now it's become, like, I think it's expected that we have fresh homemade bread in the house at all times.
Wow. All right. That sounds nice.
That I have probably made more than anything during COVID. But I really, I mean, I like to try new recipes. I mix things up all the time. We have staples that we fall to every week, but I
What are some
love
of your staples? I'm always looking for new ideas.
staple recipes. Quesadillas
Yep.
are an easy staple because you can do anything with it, like whatever you have in the house, and it can appease anybody. It can be vegetarian, it can have meat in it. It's an easy way to get rid of leftovers. So that's like an easy, fast, staple go-to. And I kind of feel the same way about frittatas, which a lot of people think frittatas are kind of dated, but I kind of love frittatas for the same reason. Is that you whatever you have in the fridge that you want to get rid of, you can use veggies, meats, cheeses. Like, I'll clear it out and be like, all right, let's just chop all this up, toss it in there, and it works. And they're fast and easy. So those are some kind of staple dishes.
Okay.
But I mix it up. Like we have a tricky household because it's my husband's pescatarian, my oldest daughter is vegetarian, and my 13-year-old will eat just about any kind of meat. And I typically have not cooked a lot with meat because of like the breakdown of our household. Yeah. I cook a lot more fish and vegetarian. But I've started doing a mix during COVID as well, just because, I like the 13-year-old likes meat more. So, sometimes I'm just like, all right, let's try some other recipes too. And I, some nights we'll make a couple of things. Just be like, all right, we'll have leftovers, but I'm going to try these different recipes.
I like the leftovers because that's usually what I eat for lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can make leftovers. I enjoy that part.
Yeah. But we do fish at least once or twice a week. And a lot of vegetarian stuff in the mix too. All
right. Well, this has been very cool. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, it was nice chatting with you.
I want to ask you one more question. Yeah. Actually, maybe one after this. But what's the strangest or coolest thing that's happened to you between Rolling Stone, Oprah, Rachel Ray, New York Times, your whole career?
Oh gosh. Okay. Strangest or coolest? Let's see. Well, aside from the White House, which was one of the coolest, shooting on the set of Sesame Street was pretty amazing.
Really?
I was like very in awe of being on Sesame Street. And they allowed me to, my oldest daughter was in kindergarten at that time, and they allowed me to bring her as well. So, which was both good and bad because they were taping, so I needed her to be quiet. And it was a lot of like, okay, no talking now. And she'd be like, but it was really amazing. She was able to, she had a very in-depth conversation with Abby Kadabi about silly bands.
Okay.
Which I did not think to videotape at the time, but wish I had, because it was pretty amazing.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
But it was very cool. Like, I sat on the steps of 123 Sesame Street,
That's
and
cool.
just being on set was pretty amazing. Like, that was kind of up
Did you
there
get to
with.
meet Mr. Snuffleupagus?
I did not meet Mr. Snuffleupagus,
Boy,
but
what about Elmo?
Elmo I have shot with as well. Elmo we shot with in studio too. We did
Oh,
we did a
wow.
cooking with kids shoot with Elmo, and that was pretty cool too. I learned a lot about Elmo, and what Elmo can and can't do in the kitchen. Elmo is not allowed to be near the knives, and
Okay.
or too close to the fire, but Elmo can stir.
Okay.
That was very cool. And then strange. I don't know if this is in my head because I watched your podcast not too long ago with Michael Novan, but
Oh, yeah.
hand models come to mind.
Okay.
Of just the first time I ever worked with a hand model was on an Oprah shoot, and it was a food shoot where we wanted a hand model, and we had booked this model, and it's a big studio. We have this little set off to the side where they're shooting the food. We have food on set. I'm on the other side of the studio, and this woman walks in with her arms like this and gloves, and just straight across the studio, like past me and other people, to the set in front of the camera. Like, they're shooting food, they have stuff on set, and she just walked right up and was like, stopped, didn't say a word. And I kind of go running over. I'm like, you must be our hand model. It was
Oh,
like,
my God.
like, why don't you come over here? We're not quite ready for you yet.
She watched too much Zoolander?
Right. But it was like this very dramatic entrance with her arms in the air, gloved, and just straight to the set, like, I am here.
Was she okay to work with, or did that continue
And
through
she
the rest of the
was,
day?
she
Okay,
was,
thank
but it was
God for that, at
definitely
least.
like, it was definitely, everybody on set was kind of like, oh.
Oh,
But
I
then I
bet.
had one other weird hand model experience with food, and this woman was booked. We were doing a story on making homemade pasta, and we wanted some process shots, and they had been told what they were going to do beforehand, because I wanted to make sure there would not be any concerns. And part of the process was you have your flour, and you kind of make this little, like bowl sort of space in the center, and you crack the eggs
Right.
in, and then you use your
Oh,
fingers
yeah.
to swirl the raw egg with the flour. So we set it up, and told her, it was like, the food stylist is going to explain to you what the motion's going to be, but we don't want you to start until the photographer tells you. So she's sitting there, food stylist goes over and says, like, when he tells you, you're going to do this, you're going to put your hands in, and you're going to explains it. Photographer's like, okay, ready. She doesn't touch it. She just like does the motion above the food. We're like, okay,
She took
that's
that
great.
literally.
But we need you, like, we need the egg and the flour to connect. So we need you to, she's like, okay. We did this like 5 times where she was not touching the food. And we were like, and finally we got her to do it, but it was very, like, I basically ended up pulling the whole team aside and was like, everybody come over here and show me your hands. And it was like, we basically picked the best hands on set, and we were like, great, we're done with you, released her, and used like an assistant that kind of.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
But I was like, those were, but I was just like, they can be very, very odd.
Sounds like hand models are divas. I had no idea.
It's pretty fascinating. There's some great, I mean, I worked with some amazing ones too, but you kind of learn like which ones, like I went through some definitely weird ones
It's gonna be
before.
tough to date a hand model.
Yeah.
All right, no, you can't hold my hand. Let me feel your hands first. No, those are too rough. You cannot hold my hand.
Right.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let you go, but I want to ask you one thing. It has nothing to do with work. The little African wooden thing you have up on.
Yes.
We have the exact same thing. Where
Do you really? We got it in Seattle, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
My wife got it at World Market, but I'm positive.
That's so funny. We got it years ago in Seattle.
Yeah, we have one. We have a screened-in porch, and I actually almost knocked it over yesterday.
That's so
So,
funny.
yeah, I saw it, I was like, I think we have that same thing.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, Kim, thank you,
All
thank
right,
you.
sure. Nice talking to
This
you.
was fun. It was nice talking to you too. I really appreciate you being on here and doing it.
Sure. Take care.
Thank you too. Bye bye.
Bye.